Hi, everybody. This is Meilin Obinata, today's host of Talk of the Bay. My guests for this first portion of the show are from the California Billionaire Tax Act, which is a voter initiative proposing, taxing billionaires, of which we have about 200 in California. Seema Kanani is a proud member of the SEIU-United Healthcare Workers, a medical social worker, and a candidate for Milpitas City Council. Kris Cuaresma-Primm leads partnerships for this ballot measure. He holds an MBA and BA from UC Berkeley, where he also served as student body president. Seema and Kris, can you hear us?
Gotcha.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yes. Thank you, Meilin.
Thank you so much for being here. So, what is this proposal? The California Billionaires Tax Act. Why are people in such an uproar, especially if they have $1 billion? Why are they so upset?
Yeah, let's talk about these billionaires. What we want people to understand is that the California billionaires pay a much lower tax rate than the rest of what us working families pay out of every paycheck. It just doesn't seem fair for a billionaire to pay less than a teacher, a nurse, or a radio host. And to make this worse, massive federal healthcare cuts are coming. California is going to lose about $100 billion. So there's an emergency right now. Local hospitals and emergency rooms could shut their doors forever because these billionaires insist on paying less than the rest of us. And so that's why we're hearing from the voters across California that they want to vote yes on this billionaire tax to ensure they pay their fair share.
Thank you. And Seema?
Well, so me being a hospital worker, Meilin, I see my patients that are seniors or the frail or the disabled not being able to get the services they need because clinics are closing, food assistance has been reduced, and all because billionaires aren't doing their fair share, and us working folks, teachers, firefighters, healthcare workers, and nurses, we're out here paying tax on every dollar that we earn.
Yeah, I don't think anybody looks at their tax bill and smiles, but it makes me smile even less to know that my least favorite billionaires are paying less than I am proportionally. So in terms of to get a sense of scale of the gap that Californians are facing, can both of you or one of you paint a picture of how many California residents receive help through SNAP, CalFresh, Medi-Cal, like the programs that would be addressed through this proposed ballot measure?
It's a great question, and thanks for the opportunity to share. To first talk about the billionaires, there are about 200 billionaires in California, and they have about $2 trillion in wealth. This wealth has doubled in the last 3 years and has grown at about 7.5% for the last couple decades. And the big beautiful bill is going to rip $100 billion out of our California healthcare system. There are massive cuts to education. And there are about $3 billion cut from SNAP, what a lot of people call food stamps. And so this means that a couple of million of Californians could lose their healthcare coverage. It means that premiums can skyrocket for all of us when it's even tough to afford it now, as well as the cost of prescription drugs. When you rip $3 billion out of food stamps, we're talking about ripping food out of the mouth of kids, seniors, and the 119,000 vets that rely on food stamps to eat.
Okay, all of that sounds terrible. Is there a way in which the other side is spinning this to make it sound like this shouldn't this shouldn't get on the ballot? Or I'm just trying to understand. Sometimes things are like, okay, things are super obvious. Is there, I don't know if you want to address like, oh, but they have this argument, or like, oh no, it was so sad a couple years ago when they only had 1 trillion, or, you know, how do they make us feel sorry for them? Because it's hard for them.
Yeah, let me take a stab at that.
Okay, sure.
I think critics might say that the billionaires will leave.
Right. Yes, they've threatened, and I don't personally know anyone who will cry when they leave. But I'm like, oh, are you guys? Oh, so sorry to see you go. So nice to have you.
Right.
Okay.
But the billionaires own the newspapers, and the stories you're seeing in the newspapers is that they're all threatening to leave, and that the economy will crater. But the reality is, these billionaires only pay about 2.5% of our income base. That's all they're chipping in. We're paying for the rest of it. And there's this crisis coming. A tidal wave of pain, unnecessary suffering, and in some cases death is going to happen when 2 million people lose their health care coverage and hospitals and ERs close. And so we're actually lucky in California that the laws belong to us, not them. And this ballot proposition is designed to be a dollar for dollar backfill of these cruel federal cuts. 1% a year from these billionaires could backfill all of these cuts.
I have a question for Seema. As someone who works in healthcare, did you ever think that healthcare funding would be something that becomes a political football?
Having done this for 19 years, no.
Okay.
Absolutely not. And just in even the last couple of years of seeing my patients, especially my elderly patients, that's who I work with, and seeing them struggle with the skyrocketing prescription costs even. A lot of my patients with diabetes, dementia, certain cancers have already in the past expressed hardship where they have to choose between getting their medication or paying their light bill. And that breaks my heart. And now to politicize it is tragic.
Is this a journey that you thought, oh yeah, I'm going to have to jump in here? Or, I mean, your profession is that of being a social worker. So that, I imagine, that means you're paying attention to individual patients. What was the tipping point to make it so that you thought, okay, I have to actually jump into this fray?
You mean besides the last 1 year?
Sure. I mean, that's fine if that's your answer. I'm just curious. I'm always curious to know what gets people engaged.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, it has been my mom. She called me one day and asked me, how come the food card has half the amount than what normally comes every month? And that, to me, kept me up that night. Because if me being a social worker, right, I'm able to help my own parents, but there's really nothing I can per se do about the food assistance and the SNAP program, my heart absolutely then started to ache for my patients that either have chronic illnesses or are young and have mental health needs, things that they absolutely rely on this basic right of healthcare. And that's when I realized this is not a spectator sport.
I wanted to share that I don't see this proposal as extreme. And just for context, Washington State, their legislature is looking at a bill to tax incomes over $1 million at a rate of 9.9 annually, and the governor's saying he's willing to sign. Rhode Island State is looking at raising the tax rate for those making over $625,000 a year from 5.99 to 8.99, which is like a 3% increase. And of course, a lot of people have heard about in New York City, Mayor Zohran Mamdani campaign on a platform including ideas like increasing the corporate tax rate from 7.25 to 11.5% and increasing I think the tax rate on residents making more than $1 million a year from 3.88 to 5.88. So in that context, and I know we're going back to like the very small violins that we're playing for billionaires, but really it does seem like, I mean, other places in the United States are looking at ways to address shortfalls. Do you want to comment on what other states are doing?
Yeah, we're focused on California, but I'll quickly comment on that. And the question is, like, what type of world do we want to live in, right? So I think we want to raise the economic floor so that families, one job should be enough to put food on the table and have a dignified life. Many of the proposals you're talking about address income, which is important. But in a place like California, Mark Zuckerberg pays himself an income of $1 a year. Our proposition is a little bit different because it's about wealth. And there's $2.2 trillion in wealth here in California that is going untaxed. And if these people pass away, they'll hand it over to their kids, and it again will be untaxed. So we're focused on California. We're focused on the abnormal cut of $100 billion to our healthcare system, education and feeding programs for kids and seniors and vets. And this wealth tax, we're going to empower the people to vote for it so that we can backfill the cuts. This is an emergency. Again, what we want to convey is that sick people will get sicker. And if you're on the brink, if you have life-saving medications and you're covered by Medi-Cal for that, if that goes away, there's going to be a lot of unnecessary pain and suffering. And we believe the people of California, the voters keep telling us, yes, this is a no-brainer.
Thank you so much, Kris. So what can listeners do to support this? And how can people follow you?
Seema, you want to take the first stab at it? I've been talking a lot and then I can jump in.
Yes. So voters definitely can sign the petition. It is so important for us to get this ballot, on the November voting. So sign the petition. Go and visit the website, which is, and Kris, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's billionairetaxnow.org. Because a lot of people, again, what you asked is what are the arguments against it? And the questions are definitely answered on the website. And follow along with us on Instagram at Billionaire Tax Now, and even on Facebook, so you can stay up to date on where we're at.
Thank you. Is that the best way for people to know kind of where people are collecting signatures? Because I sometimes hear, like, for example, in Santa Cruz, people are gathering signatures, and it's sort of like when you have your favorite food truck and you don't know, wait, is it here? When is it here? What's the best way to like track people down when they're gathering signatures?
Yeah, finding a signature. We don't want it to be like the super cool Korean taco food truck.
Right.
Magically.
You knew what I was talking about. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're so lucky to have 5,000 volunteer signature gatherers across the state. And these are people who just want to live in a world where we keep hospitals open instead of giving tax cuts to the wealthiest. And so if you go to that site, billionairetax.org, we'll have a newsletter up and we can send links out. But there should be people in front of the Trader Joe's, at the grocery store, at your favorite farmer's market. We have teachers volunteering who are signing in schools. And if you yourself want to sign up to endorse as an organization or a person, we need to get 875,000 signatures by mid-April. We're confident we'll get there, but we're going up against very powerful groups, and we need to power the people to make this happen, to give us the right to vote on this wealth tax.
All right. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate both of you taking time to speak with us at K-Squid. And I hope you come back.
Thanks so
And
much for having us.
yeah, please come back and tell us how awesome Californians are for signing this proposal.
Yes, thank you, Meilin, for having us. And we are trendsetters, so we have to show up as voters.
We got to do, Californians do it the best.
Yes,
so.
we do. We do.
Thank you.
They see themselves as something separate and apart. Like the oligarchs, remember the history we learned in school, like the oligarchs of the 18th and 19th centuries, the kings and the queens and the czars. These guys literally believe that they have the divine right to rule and are no longer subject to democratic governments. These are people, billionaires, who have created huge businesses with revolutionary technologies like AI and robotics that are literally transforming the face of the earth and everyone on it. And they are saying to you and to everybody in America, who the hell do you think you are, telling us what we, the ruling elite, the millionaires, the billionaires, the richest people on earth, who do you think you are, telling us what we can do or not do? We, the billionaire class, have the wealth and we have the power. We run the show, and they are saying there is nothing you can do about it. Well, we've got some bad news for them. Starting right here in California, these billionaires are going to learn that we are still living in a democratic society where the people have some power.
All right, that was Bernie Sanders. I'm sure maybe some of you know who this person is. But yeah, he was, I think that was him speaking at Stanford University. I think he was doing a talk with Congressmember Ro Khanna about artificial intelligence and data centers. The topic of data centers obviously came up. All right, and before we get into the topic of data centers, I just want to remind people that K-Squid previously covered the Moss Landing fire, which was caused by lithium-ion battery storage. So if you want to just kind of immerse yourself in the ins and outs of fire safety with lithium ion, you can go back into our catalog for that. So with me today, I have Landon Sepulveda and Francisco Leal. They are respectively from Stop Gilroy Data Centers Now and NIMBY Imperial. Francisco, are you with us?
Yes, hello. Good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you for being here. And Landon.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
Oh, okay. Try that one more time. Our microphone was...
No worries.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
Thank you. So maybe you could introduce yourself. I'll start with Landon.
Yeah, I'm Landon Sepulveda. I'm the lead organizer for Stop the Gilroy Data Center campaign under our organization, South Valley Community Voice.
And Francisco?
Hi, this is Francisco Leal. I am with NIMBY Imperial. We're not an organization. We're not a nonprofit. We're just a coalition of neighbors, getting together and fighting, this data center that they want to build in our backyard.
All right. So does anybody, in researching this topic, I learned a phrase called sacrifice zone. Does anybody want to take a stab at explaining what a sacrifice zone is? Okay, Francisco, I heard you say something, so maybe you want to take that question?
Sacrifice zone, For the good or the bad, there's already a lot of data out there nationwide and regarding these data centers. And we have to make sure that when we talk about data centers, we say it for what it is. It's a hyperscale data center, an AI data center. There's a huge difference between a data center that we've known for decades to the most recent, hyperscale data centers that we came to know maybe a few years ago, right? So it's the data out there shows that these big tech companies or developers for hyperscale data centers are targeting rural communities, low income, with unemployment issues, with different social issues, and because of different reasons, and some of them are cheaper land, cheaper power, cheaper water, right? And they expect little to no resistance from those communities. So Imperial Valley, in our case, it's a population of 180,000 total. It's a lot of land, but just not that many people as, combine them across all the different cities in the county. So I think that's my understanding, for a sacrifice zone. You don't see these hyperscale data centers being built in Beverly Hills or
why wouldn't Beverly Hills be sacrificed? I'm confused.
If I could answer,
please,
at least for
free.
me, sacrifice zones are usually in lower income and often minority areas. And Gilroy itself is over about 50% Hispanic. And so I would say that the whole city could be considered a sacrifice zone for like the state or like these big tech companies. And so these sacrifice zones take advantage of people who can't fight back.
Or the perception is that people wouldn't fight back. Okay. Thank you. And I was also going to ask about hyperscale. So hyperscale, maybe if people want to talk about, what's with these new data centers that maybe wasn't true of older ones? What is it about hyperscale that makes locations like Imperial and Gilroy so attractive?
Okay, I'll take the first shot at it. So the hyperscale, why they're so attractive, and mainly the difference between an ordinary data center is this one uses GPUs, right, instead of CPUs. Mm-hmm. So this is like the generative, processors that learn and evolve, for lack of a better word, compared to a normal processor or a CPU. However, if you think about hyperscale data centers, I personally cannot think of any other industry in the world that consumes so much power and water in such a small footprint. Right? You're talking about hundreds of megawatts and hundreds of thousands of millions of gallons of water a day. I just can't think of any other industry that consumes so much in such a small footprint. Therefore, we consider that these should be treated as a unique, business or item, and they cannot be mixed up or compared to any other industry. Therefore, it requires its own ordinances, zoning, and everything that's going to provide safeguards to the communities where these are being placed on.
Thank you, Landon. I don't know if you want to.
Well, it's taking so much without giving really anything back to either the community or the world at large. Most people don't want AI in anything, and it's been forced into all aspects of life. And like you said, with the zoning, these small towns have outdated zoning for these things because as they're new, the scale of these are fully new and the consequences are new, and smaller towns aren't looking at that, and so that's why I believe they are settling in places like Gilroy and Imperial.
Thank you, Landon. So Francisco, there's some differences, of course, like Imperial is different from Gilroy, and there's some unique characteristics in each of your situations. In the case of Gilroy, I think it's Amazon, right? They want a data center for their Amazon Web Services, their cloud business. And in the case of Imperial, it's this. I'll just say it's a very interesting situation in terms of who is developing or wants to develop the data center and is also suing the city of Imperial. Could you give us some insight on that context?
So, regarding to that, yeah, there's a big difference. So we recently found out that the developer, using quotation marks, is Imperial Valley Computer Manufacturing, and their intention is to secure the land and the permit and then flip the project to a big tech company. That could be Google, that could be Amazon, that could be any of those, Meta, OpenAI, right? So that is a difference where here we're not really fighting a big tech, but we're fighting like an entrepreneur, developer that he's just going to sell, his LLC to a big tech. And that is a big concern because dealing with a big tech is already difficult, but dealing with someone that is here just to flip, the project, what are the guarantees that the community get in regards to jobs, in regards to safeguards, in regards to tax revenues and everything that comes with it?
So it's kind of
that is a big concern.
So kind of a bait and switch situation potentially. There's some. I'll just say, listeners can do their own research, but there are some question marks associated with that developer in terms of the certain personnel involved. So I'm gonna pivot to Landon. So, I mean, a lot of people would love to have Amazon, in their backyard. Like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. Why do you want to resist a data center in your community, especially from such a, prestigious company like Amazon?
Well, I've lived in Gilroy my whole life, and my whole family lives there, and that means I have a responsibility to look out for our city's best interest, and how cool it might be for some people to have these corporations move into their town. It's a data center is not what's best for Gilroy. Gilroy needs to be a statement that smaller towns cannot be taken advantage of by corporations. Any smaller towns with outdated laws or anything like that can't be pushed around.
Thank you. So, excuse me. Francisco, in the case of Imperial, there are different features community members have been promised before when there was like solar tech, I think solar cell tech on the table and other things. What has happened in the past when there have been, I guess, ambitious projects involving large scale technology, say manufacturing or deployment of various kinds? What have the results been so far?
So see, the solar fields here in the valley were presented very similar as the data centers are being presented right now regarding tax revenue and the promise of jobs. I don't have the statistics with me right now for solar fields, but the people's perception is, really no jobs. And as you drive by those solar fields, you rarely see someone, not a few or a handful. You see no one in those, solar fields. And then the people was asking, where's the tax revenue? Because we don't see it on our roads. We don't see it on our hospitals. We don't see it in public services. So again, there's the same approach with these data centers. Developers for data centers, when they're targeting communities like ours, they're presenting these projects as if it was like Noah's Ark. It's going to save everybody, right? is going to save you from all the problems that you have, right? When in reality, the data shows that these hyperscale data centers are more of a Trojan horse instead of a Noah's Ark, right? Because once they go in, they're going to start gouging your resources, and not to mention other potential harms that they put the communities to. So that's a perception that we get, from these projects.
Okay, so once bitten, twice shy, or some variant of that. Just, what is it? Fool me once, shame on.
Fool me once.
Shame on you.
Yeah.
Fool me twice, shame on me. So you just don't want to get to that second part, the shame on me part.
No, they play that Trojan horse already, with the solar fields, and that's why we're trying to bring awareness to the community. This is another Trojan horse, so shame on us if we let it happen.
Thank you. I'm going to pause here for our 30-minute break. I want to let everybody know you're listening to KSQD, Santa Cruz, KSQD, Prudale at 89.5, 89.7, 90.7 FM, and on your smart device or screen at ksqd.org.
All astronomical observatories catch waves, irregular waves that might have been sent from outer space.
Some signals are hard to explain. This one comes from Santa Cruz, KSQD, K-Squid, 90.7 FM, community radio for Earth and beyond.
As the ranking member of the U.S. Senate Health, Education, Labor, Pensions Committee, I released a report finding that AI, automation, and robotics could replace nearly 100 million jobs in America over the next decade. Researchers right here at Stanford released a paper in November called Canaries in the Coal Mine that found that there has already been a 16% relative decline in employment for younger workers in jobs exposed to AI, like computer programming and customer service. In other words, it is already more difficult for young college graduates to find decent jobs. So the question we have to ask ourselves, and I think what motivated me to get involved in this issue, is my belief, and Ro can speak to this as well, that the Congress and the American people are very unprepared for the tsunami that is coming, all right? So if millions of people lose their jobs and can't simply go to another job because that other job has also disappeared, what do we do? And somebody says, well, no problem, we'll just give, basic a check to everybody. Really? Who's going to write that check? And when people lose their jobs, how are you going to maintain institutions like Medicare and Social Security when people are not paying taxes? And if they're going to simply write out checks, how much are you getting? And how much are you getting? And how guaranteed are you? Is it Mr. Musk who's going to be writing out a check? So these are questions that we have not in any serious way, Ro can agree with me or not, begun discussing in the Congress. Some people can have differences of opinion. Maybe they think I'm wrong in my analysis. But at least we got to lay this on the table. That's why I'm here today. And my own view is that we have got to slow this thing down. And I know people say it's impossible, it's moving too fast, you can't. But I think you do. And I think we need to take a deep breath and say, all right, my God, if all of these jobs are going to disappear, what, in God's name, what kind of world are we creating? How do we protect the average American worker? And that is why I think that we need a moratorium on the growth of data centers in this country.
All right, that was Bernie Sanders, and if he's saying we need a moratorium of data centers, who are we to say differently? But he was referring to Ro, as in Ro Khanna, the Congress member of Silicon Valley. They were presenting, I believe, to Stanford University about artificial intelligence, and my guests here today are Francisco Leal of NIMBY Imperial and Landon Sepulveda of Stop Gilroy Data Center Now. Francisco Leal was just talking about the history of Imperial and solar cell development, which did not yield the employment and resources, tax revenue to the community as people were hoping. And we were talking about, or Francisco was describing the situation as a matter of possibly like a Trojan horse. So, Francisco, when you talk to people about the proposed data center, when you say, "Hey, this could be a Trojan horse," what kind of reactions do you get? Do people say, "Oh yes, I completely understand," or are they confused? How well do they absorb that message?
They relate to the story of Troy right away. They see this is a gift, something nice. This is for beautification of your city, and all of a sudden, that gift, is what's really end up harming you. Because once you set the first hyperscale data center in place and it starts taking your resources, it's too late to try to stop it. Those things, operate 24/7, 365 days a year, and that is the same, power and water. So it's part of what I was mentioning before. It doesn't compare to any other industry that consumes so much power and water, in such a small footprint.
Thank you. I'm going to pivot to Landon now. The mayor of Gilroy, Greg Bozo, recently told KRON 4 News that there's nothing that can be done to stop the data center from being built. And this is despite concerns from residents about electricity and water uses, just as Francisco was mentioning, that the city needs the economic benefit from the data center, while also saying, and I'm quoting him, "We want to do what's best for the community and the residences." How do you respond to that?
We understand that the city council does not have the power anymore to fully stop the data center. They did when it was when the project holder came to purchase the land. However, they do have the power to impose the regulations we have detailed in our petition and in our many speeches at the city council, which the mayor was there for, obviously. The council has to hold Amazon responsible to keep the city safe and healthy. I understand the mayor wants to grow Gilroy economically. The finances of Gilroy are an understandable concern. But what is unclear is what growth is truly coming from this. There's been no details of what Gilroy is benefiting from the data center itself. And in fact, across the country, when data centers come to town, the utility bills on surrounding residents spike. So it may impact the residents' wallets even negatively.
So actually, that makes me wonder, has there been an upside for a community when there's a hyperscale data center? Because I know that, these are, no one's doing installations of these in like Beverly Hills or so on. So what do we see historically? Is it just a Trojan horse everywhere, and the wishes for greater resources and tax revenues? And Francisco, you're mentioning the beautification angle that comes up in these narratives. Is there any evidence to take the side of these data centers?
From what I've seen, is the best case scenario is it doesn't affect you in any way.
It doesn't affect you. Okay. Okay. That's the best. Okay.
And frankly, if they want to make data centers, they shouldn't be within these towns that are going to have strains on the power grid. Just yesterday, half of Gilroy's power went out. And I was a part of that. I was left in the dark. And so if they want these data centers, places where there's already strains on the power grid is not where to go. And I've not seen any evidence of a community being positively impacted by a data center where any other commercial or industrial buildings would have not had the same impact. Like they could be many arguments for it is that it's union jobs, like for contractors. Anything is union that's constructed in Gilroy would be union jobs for contractors, and it would be giving back to the community. So from what I've seen, there's really no reason for this.
Francisco,
Yeah.
maybe in Imperial, maybe you're unique. Maybe it's only a Trojan horse in your town. Have you seen a positive result? I must confess, it's not like I did not scour the earth to find out if there's any positive impact of a data center, but I did not find like a huge upside. But I'll let you ponder that.
The way to see it in a simple way is unless you're making money with the data center, there's no positive.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they show up promising jobs and tax revenue. But let's think about it. If they're targeting small rural communities like ours, do you really believe big tech is going to take their chances and give those construction jobs to local companies to build a super advanced hyperscale data center? I don't think so. So they have all these almost like cookie cutters. They move around towns to build, right? Or they bring these very specialized construction companies. And then especially if you're flipping the project, how can you guarantee that? That the locals are going to get the jobs. A private contract is not a public guarantee.
Right. And just for listeners, just by the way, K-Squid has shows featuring Malcolm Harris, the author of Palo Alto, which is a deep dive into the history of Silicon Valley. And I'll just say that I had friends who are technologists listen to me interview Malcolm Harris, and they're like, or people react to his book in different ways. They're like, well, he has the facts right. It's very well researched, but I think they feel uncomfortable because it's portraying Silicon Valley in this very rapacious way, and they're sort of mystified as to how big tech gets that reputation. So I recommend that. If you want to read a 660-page book about Silicon Valley, I highly recommend it. So. For Francisco, I wanted to ask, in the case of Imperial County, the prospect of lithium mining, at one point, that was a very attractive possibility. But now that's cooling off. How does that energy or that excitement connect to that desire to summon up a data center?
So recently, on I think it was December 30th of last year, 2025, the county released what they call the PEIR, right? That includes, it's a study and assessment that encompasses several industries that can be built up north in our county. And if it gets approved, it's going to give basically green light to all these different industries to be built with basically minimum to no, assessments. And in there, they're including hyperscale data centers of up to 1.3 million square feet with no CEQA requirement, which is, I don't know, if all the places in the United States and in California, I just can't believe that such a massive industrial facility with everything that comes with it can be built without CEQA assessment.
Thank you. I want to ask Landon a question. When you tell people about your petition on change.org, what kinds of reactions are you receiving?
Yeah, people in Gilroy have been very supportive. I mean, I've been downtown. I've spoken to people on the street about the data center, and they've expressed concerns. I've really only, at least in person, have gotten wild agreement. Even online, it's 90% support. There's never going to be 100% agreement online of anything, but they seem very supportive. And there is a concern that change.org isn't a petition that's legally binding, which I understand, but it is a statement of support, and it is one part of a very large movement that we are planning, right? We are canvassing door to door. We are getting people involved. So it is mostly just a show of, I don't want to say force, but a show of support. this isn't just politics. It's an issue for everyday people in Gilroy, and it's the people who will feel its effects in their day-to-day life.
Has this experience changed you in any way, Lyndon?
It's made me more comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Okay.
I've never really done anything in the public like this before, but it's worth it. And I want to say that to everybody listening, that it is worth it to speak out if you have that chance, if you have that, the opportunity to do it. You have that responsibility, like I mentioned earlier. I have the responsibility to keep my city safe in what way I think is best and what way the community clearly thinks is best.
Thank you. Oh,
totally. I'm the same. Like you. I think we became activists by accident.
I agree with that.
And the developer, they're defending, they're fighting for their pockets, but here we're fighting for our homes and our families. So that is an endless source of energy for us. So we're not going anywhere.
Agreed.
Well, as we race towards the top of the hour, I'm wondering if each of you could share your final thoughts, maybe like a minute each. Francisco, would you like to go first, or do you want to flip a coin?
Yeah,
he can go first.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
I'll take a shot. So we just want to, encourage everybody to speak up, and if you can't speak up, to support, the groups that are doing the work to defend your community by sharing social media. That really helps a lot, by interacting, by showing up to meetings or town halls if they organize, by reaching out to your elected officials, asking for support, bug them, make them feel uncomfortable, because these people, sometimes that's what they need, until they hear, that a vast majority of a lot of people is getting uncomfortable with this situation. Until then, they'll take action on it. So that's why, us in NIMBY Imperial, first, we just want a moratorium on all data centers in general. And we really want full discretionary environmental review. I don't know, don't do it as a ministerial or just like that, right? We also want, a safe, setback. I don't know, what would that be? If it's 3 miles, if it's 10 miles from any residential, zone or schools. Because this proposed AI data centers, within half a mile, you're going to have 3 schools and homes. And then within 800 feet, there's a Kinder Morgan fuel facility storage. That also makes it very dangerous to be there. And then something I just thought about with this issue with Iran right now, would these hyperscale data centers become military targets? Something to think about, right? And you're putting it right next to homes. That is just something that I just thought about this morning, seeing the news while I was watching the news. So, yeah, that's what I have to say. We are getting informed, we're getting organized, and we, the people, are the ones that vote. So we expect support and from our elected officials to protect us. That's what they're for.
Thank you, Francisco. What about you, Lyndon? What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, if you or anyone listening want to get involved, you can look us up at on Instagram at Gilroy Data Center, or Stop the Gilroy Data Center Now, sorry, or the same at gmail.com if you wish to email us. My thoughts are just never stop caring. People will will think that it's wrong to care and to do actions in your community. They'll think that it's useless or that you can't make a change, but we can make a change together. And you can make a change in our movement if you wish to participate, and you can make a change in your own life, in your own community.
Thank you. So if people want to follow you, Francisco, and they want to learn about the progress that's happening in Imperial, they can go to, I believe, NIMBY.
Yeah, we're NIMBY Imperial on Facebook and NIMBY Imperial on Instagram as well, and we have a NIMBY Imperial at gmail.com all together.
Okay, thank you. And Landon, you had shared your social medias. So I asked every question I could possibly ask, but I hope that you will come back and let K-Squid listeners know how things are going. I think that the technology that we are using every day and so on, there are many questions, I think, that people need to weigh. And I think whether we're in like Monterey County or Santa Cruz County, and I know that Salinas has a pending Amazon fulfillment center, just being aware of what's happening, whether these are places that are adjacent to us or in places farther away like Imperial. I think that's just important to understand what happens in one place can happen in other places as well.
Exactly.
So I really appreciate both of you taking the time to share your experiences and knowledge with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for the time and the space, and hopefully in the future we can come back and talk now about how we were able to defeat these hyperscale data centers in the future.
Here's hoping.
Absolutely. All right. You've been listening to Talk of the Bay. I've been your host, Meilin Obinata. My guests were Francisco Leal of NIMBY Imperial and Landon Sepulveda of Stop Gilroy Data Center Now. And at the top of the hour, we had people from the California Billionaire Tax Act proposal. And we've had audio clips of Bernie Sanders discussing the situation we're facing with billionaires and with data centers. So I want to thank everyone who has worked on the show. Of course, Howard Feldstein, our station manager, Yakon Yasu, our engineer, and all the staff and volunteers at KSQD.